Hi guys, I'm Stephanie.
And I'm Peter Louis.
Welcome to our podcast, Legend and Lore, a World Tour. Join us as we jump right back down the rabbit hole about the werewolves of Europe. So last week we ended our episode with a story about Peter Stump, a self-proclaimed werewolf and serial killer. So if you've missed that episode, I'd recommend listening to episode 7 before diving into this one. This week we're stepping back in time to explore the chilling case of Gilles Garnier, known as the Werewolf of Dole, or more ominously, the Hermit of St. Bonnet. Garnier was a man whose crimes would shock an entire region. One evening, a group of workers travelled from a nearby town and saw something in the shadows. At first they saw what they believed to be a wolf, hunched over, tearing into its prey. They immediately went to investigate, as during this period several children had gone missing and the whispers around the area was that a wolf was attacking them. As the group of men drew closer, the shape of the moonlight shifted. What they had thought was a beast was, in fact, a man they knew. It was the hermit man, Gilles Garnier. This, however, was not the most disturbing part. The part that caught everyone off guard was that the small animal that they saw, the wolf devouring, was not an animal but in fact a dead child. Both Garnier and the small limp body in his hands were covered in blood. The men immediately sprang into action and Garnier was arrested. So one thing I would like to note here is that there are two accounts regarding the time Garnier was caught with the body of the child. In one, he was just caught walking with the dead child in his hands, and the other, it was said that they saw him tearing into the child with his hands and teeth. So there is two accounts on that.
Look, just what I don't understand is did they actually see a wolf eating the child? Because it sounds like there were stories about a wolf eating children, and now they saw Garnier with a child, and allegedly either eating the child or not eating the child. So where does the wolf come in? Did they see him? Was there ever a wolf witnessed here, except for the stories of a wolf in the area?
So that I cannot find specifically. Like I said, at the beginning they say they saw a wolf in the night devouring a child, and when they got to him, he was a man. So it's possible that he was a wolf, and when he heard them coming near, he changed himself back into a man. I don't know. I cannot find the accounts. I think there were 3 accounts or so, but I'm not sure.
Where was the Saint Bonnet? In what country is this?
I think France.
It does seem Francish. Frenchish, Francish. It's France, yeah. Just what I've just noticed that depending which country or how they approach this, and I think there's the Western American werewolves and stories, and there's the European parts of it. The European parts ones are the more detailed ones, the more, the more hysteric ones. All the people overdid things. But like I said, I would just like to know, did they see wolf? Was there a wolf?
I don't.
Was there animal? Because
I'm not going to say hysteria, but religion-wise, I feel they overdid it in most countries. Because it feels like whenever something is just a little bit dark, they automatically go devil.
But that's exactly what I said.
I'm religious, I'm a Christian. If somebody's going to tell me they're turning into a wolf, I'm not automatically going, oh, the devil. I don't know. I don't.
But that's what I said last week about
There's
the plague.
Laws and killing someone. I get that. You deserve to, even if you turn into a wolf, I'll punish you for the killings, not because, you made a deal with the devil, so now you have to die.
But also, I don't see your
Prove
story
the
about
death.
a wolf and see a person eating a child and think it's a wolf. Because let's say maybe he did kill the child. I'm pretty sure we're going to get to that, or whatever you're going to say. You probably did kill a child. Probably was a serial killer. But did they see wolf? Was there a wolf? What made it a werewolf?
If you listen to what I said at the beginning, I said first they saw a wolf devouring its prey. So basically, originally they saw a wolf.
Mm-hmm. But then there were the two accounts. As the two accounts was, that was
He
him
was
just
carrying-
walking. So then there's no possibility of a wolf eating a child.
That's what I'm saying.
And then
There's two accounts.
But then there's they saw Garnier eating the child. Also, then again, not a wolf.
Yes, but remember, that statement is more that when they got to him, they realized it was him. He was full of blood. The child was full of blood. And also, let's say he was not a wolf, cannibalism.
Yeah, well, listen, that's something that's possible because that happens quite. That's not.
Why is a wolf not possible? A
No,
werewolf?
it could have been. There could have been wolves. This is
Or
France.
he
I
could
think.
have been a werewolf.
I think are they wolves in France? Oh, I'm gonna Google this. The wolves in France.
I think so, yes.
I think
because
so.
They talk about a
You go
lot
in
of
the
woods
mountains.
and so on, and he lived in the woods.
Well, it's the return of the wolves. I'm guessing there were wolves. Wolves were then killed, and then they returned the wolf. So wolves were in the Alps. Obviously, it's in the mountain ranges. So there could have been a wolf, and there could
Or
have been
it
this,
could have been him who was a werewolf.
or he could have just killed the child, and there were wolves in the area. Stories about wolves. Because remember,
Remember, it's how the kids were killed.
yeah, but remember there were
So
other kids, and
they
let's say they were killed by
physically-
wolves.
They were torn apart. It wasn't knives and things. You could see them being. So it was definitely
But
nails
that
and
was just one
tearing.
child. But the
No,
other children.
No, that's why there was talk between the town that wolves are killing kids.
But that's possible.
It's how they were torn apart.
Yeah, but we had this conversation last night about people letting the children walk into the woods. A pack of wolves will tear your 2-year-old child apart. A wolf will basically, if I won't go into a pack of wolves. I think I'm stronger than a dog. I'm not stronger than 20 dogs.
No,
They will.
two of them
they,
will
and like I
pull
said,
you
they
down.
they were what they call the French Alp, or the Alp wolf, or wolf Alps, from that area, and then they would have killed children. And remember that back in the
But
14th
that's the same
century,
as saying a bear would kill children. Or
it could have been a
serial killer
bear
would
if
kill,
there were bears.
Or it was a werewolf.
But they saw. I
It
don't.
could have been. Could have, would have, should have. You can put that any way you want.
Okay. But
Anyway.
let's listen to the rest of the story.
So we know you're not a believer. Who cares? Let's move on. So the question is, who was Gilles Garnier? He was a simple man with few things. He lived a solitary life outside a small town of Dole.
I'm guessing he was probably a bread maker somewhere. There's always a bread maker or a Disney fairy tale somewhere here.
No.
Oh.
In a small hut with his wife, Opaline, and their children. So basically, outside of town, in the woods, they're off the beaten track type of people, if you look at the bigger picture. Garnier struggled to keep up with the demands of the new family he had, and he had to go out to hunt to ensure everyone was fed. He would come home on occasion with pieces of meat that he would give to his wife to prepare for them to eat. After Garnier was captured, he was tortured by authorities to extract his confession. During his confession, Garnier spoke of a ghostly figure lurking in the woods, an entity that offered him a strange ointment promising power beyond human limits. He claimed that by using it, he could shed his human skin and become the hunter he was always meant to be, a wolf. As a werewolf, he started to stalk and kill children. He confessed that he had murdered at least 4 children, aged 9 to 12, over the span of several months. His first victim was a young girl who he killed and cannibalized in a vineyard. He ate her flesh. Disturbingly, Garnier admitted to bringing pieces of his victims home, offering them to his wife to cook, as though they were nothing more than hunted game. Although his wife was never implicated or charged, I have to wonder if she knew what she was cooking.
Probably not.
I don't know. I mean, a leg of lamb and a leg of a person does not look the same. How did he rip that meat apart for... And wouldn't you realize it wasn't cut with a knife? It was torn apart by, I don't know,
Yes,
fangs and claws.
Well, he could have killed it and then cut it with a knife because he still went out hunting, so he did have knives with him and whatever he used for hunting. But I think it's just, remember, in this, it was 14th century, I think, correct? I don't think you gave a time.
1574
It's the
was when he
14th
was
century-ish.
convicted.
So you did go out hunting. Obviously, we have to keep that in mind. So that there's wilderness, and he probably hunted rabbits and small game. I'm not sure what other animals, maybe some deer, but he would probably go out for a week or two, going hunting for meat. So that means if he did bring a piece of meat home, it meant that he already ate the other half of the rabbit in this 2 weeks that he was hunting.
Children.
Or children, but like his wife would have thought, okay, this is just what's left of the rabbit. Great stuff. Let's cook it and eat it. So I don't think she knew. But what I really find interesting
She
again,
was a part of it.
or part of it, the same thing that we see here than we do with all the werewolf stories on anything else is after he was tortured, suddenly he's this massive werewolf. I think torture is a bad thing, especially in this era and around here. If you torture someone, they'll probably say anything.
I don't know, because I think of the consequences. So obviously I haven't been tortured, so I can't say, but I know they think I'd rather be dead. But if you think about how they killed people in that time, how they tortured you to kill you, I'd rather let them torture me and stick to no, it wasn't me, than be killed brutally afterwards anyway. So I don't know.
I think the torture is a bad part about this.
But you have to remember, if you're tortured and you say, okay, I did something wrong, it's one thing. If you're tortured in that timeline where the devil was this, well, he's still a bad thing, but where he was this horrible thing, especially back then you would lie about anything. You would never agree that you went to the dark side.
But keep in mind, let's go to the western side.
That would cause so much more torture.
I'm going to bring up Salem witch trials again, because it's something that's fresh in my mind after reading something about it.
Salem witch trials was more America.
It was America, that was the western side.
It's
But just to give you
funny
perspective
how
here.
they're talking about the Europeans sticking to the wolf trials and then
Yeah.
same as the witch trials. They kind of, everywhere you read about it, they kind of link into each other.
Well, just of interest sake, so what I read is Western witch trials actually never burnt anyone at the stake. I'm not sure about Joan of Arc, all those, but I know the Salem witch trials, no one actually burnt.
No, the Salem witch trials,
No,
they tortured
no one-
everybody.
Tortured, but never burnt. So the burning part is European. European is where they burned
No,
witches.
I have to go research that
You can go
because
Google
I
it, yeah.
swear the Salem witch
Yeah, so-
trials was the biggest murder,
so-
torture, killing of all the
Yeah,
witches.
but no burning.
Okay, but they were still killed.
No, killed a lot,
Okay.
yeah. Killed very dead.
I just figured witch burning.
So what they did with mostly the males in Salem witch trials is the torture part was they would pack stones on you. They call it pressing. They put you down under two pieces of wood
Oh,
and start
no.
adding rocks onto you until you confess to being a witch.
Oh,
That is
no.
not
And
fun.
Then
And
everybody
then
died
basically most of them died that way.
because your
So because
organs
I know,
would
I think it was the
explode.
first guy in the Salem witch trials that was
Won't
killed.
be able to breathe anymore.
So he implicated his wife, or his wife implicated him, but he went on trial first. He died in torture, implicating his wife, and then a week later they hung her. So,
No. Okay, but we're
okay,
getting off track here.
But anyway, so that was. How did we get here?
No, I want to know. You're talking between the witch trials
Torture,
and the...
torture. Because when you're being tortured, you'll say anything. I think you don't understand how bad torture was.
I have to
They-
say, I haven't been tortured, and I'm
Yeah.
guessing torture wasn't fun, but like I say, you'd think my torture will get worse if I admit to anything demon or dark, so let's try and shift it around to something good, just to get less torture or whatever.
But there's a reason why police aren't allowed to torture you. Otherwise, we've done it still today. That's
no,
why.
I agree, that's just horrible. But anyway, it doesn't mean he isn't a werewolf, but I agree he was tortured. So anyway, his second victim was also a young girl who he attacked in the meadow. She died after being bitten and scratched by him. Something must have happened to scare Garnier off, however, because the girl's body was found. She was unfortunately found too late to save, though. I did try to find out a bit more about the girl because she was obviously not taken home to his family to be eaten, but I couldn't find anything in-depth details about her death. Because I
So-
wanted to see exactly how did she die. Did they say a wolf? I wanted to see more about it, but I couldn't find anything.
This is part of the fairy tale werewolf side, I think. I think in the fairy tale werewolf, fairy tale werewolf
Hope for you.
is if a werewolf bit you, you became a werewolf. Isn't that how you became a werewolf? If you were bitten or scratched?
Yes.
Or is that zombie?
No.
That's zombie, but that's
also-
werewolf.
Wolf is scratched or bitten, yes, as well. Same with vampire, if you think about it. Most of them normally, but if you go into the actual folklore, not so much.
No, you don't really
It
see
seems
that.
to me, yes, in the folklore part, I normally come either across a belt, some sort of
Mythical.
salve or something that you put onto yourself, something that you rub onto yourself. There was something else, but I can't remember what it was. There was 3 things. But it's normally something you put on you. It's not a bite or a scratch or anything like that. It's
I
not
was just
that
wondering
you
about
were bitten by another werewolf or something like that. Werewolves mostly apparently kill stuff.
Well, I think second girl was probably just bitten by a wolf with rabies.
Remember, if you're torn apart, except for the
Yeah,
heart attack
but
you're
girl
gonna
2
have.
was found with just a bite and a scratch.
No, not just a bite and scratch. She was being torn apart, and something scared away the werewolf. And they were too late. If your scratches are deep enough or your bite mark is deep enough, because remember, animal first, but werewolf either. If they want to kill you, they go for your neck. So if they bite off your neck, you're done for, no matter who gets you. So if they got a proper bite in, sorry, bye. Okay, so later Garnier attacked 2 boys, apparently devouring their flesh in the woods, and I'm guessing taking some back to his wife.
But
it didn't
nobody
say.
ever said my child is missing.
Yes, that's why there was stories in the towns everywhere that wolves are attacking, wolves are killing the kids. We have to be careful.
Because all of this aligned.
Yes.
Whatever he confessed to aligned to a missing child.
Well, yes, but
Hopefully,
I don't want
sort
to.
of.
I don't want to help you with your case because I think the werewolf stories are true, but obviously, being a crime junkie type of person, loving crime junkie, and I listen to and so on podcasts, a lot of cops would feed you information if they want you to confess. So if you look at these big serial killers and so on that confessed, if you go look into their cases, in some cases, they actually say when they went back and they saw, okay, you are definitely not a serial killer. Why were you taken there? Then it comes down to they were given information or given a file to read. Or so it is actually possible to know the details by being tortured and being fed information.
See, told you.
So now anything is possible, but like I said, I didn't want to say that because then immediately it's not a werewolf, but it is possible to be fed the information.
I just want to see the one, like I always say, repetition. If there's something that happens over and over, the same thing. If there were 2, this is all the same story from the same confession. But if there was like a copy paste of the same scenario, by all means, I would have believed this. But this is one guy.
The thing here is, and I cannot prove this because I wasn't there, but obviously if the werewolf attack still happened after he was imprisoned or killed or whatever, we'll get to that later, obviously they'd know, okay, but actually this hasn't stopped, so it wasn't him. Somebody would have come out and say, hey,
You remember 14th, 15th century, people died of anything. If you stumped your toe on a table, you probably died because there were no
but still there's a
antibiotics, there were
very
nothing.
big difference of being torn apart, limb from limb.
Yeah, but remember, you can
bitten
die
and
in the woods and the
scratched.
wolves can come eat you. There's a lot of scenarios. Just remember, there's not much in Europe at this moment. There's your little village or
Yes,
maybe
but
a
like
town.
I say, if this happened so much that there was whispers around town and whispers from one town to the next, obviously this would not have stopped if he was imprisoned.
Well, it would have stopped if there was never anything.
No, because
There's still
something
the odd
happens.
child being eaten by a wolf, but now it's not a werewolf. Because
Okay,
they killed
but
the werewolf.
then the wolves won't be just gone.
Yeah.
Obviously, a month later, somebody would be yelling, "My daughter was just taken away by a wolf." something would have. So
But you wouldn't know because nobody wrote about any more.
that's my thing. I don't know. I wasn't there, but normally the news would like to be the first to report because that makes you amazing. I feel like somebody would have said, this isn't stopping, so maybe you convicted the wrong person.
No, why would you? You just killed someone for being a
Okay,
werewolf.
but the reporters didn't. The judges did.
Yeah, but still, but
It was the judges and the jury and the witnesses
who says they were judge and jury? This was probably public
No,
prosecution.
most of them know. It was never just, if you read, it's more than one judge deciding. It's normally a bunch of witnesses coming to testify. It's not just, okay, you confess, bye, you're dead now. It's like this big trial every single time. So no, there's a big thing they make about it every single time.
No, I was on the idea that most of this is public prosecution. They put you in town square. There is a judge or someone
Yes, but there's more than one.
higher authority, but this person has already been told about you. And a lot of the witch trials as well, the judge was probably the last to be convicted. He was also a witch, allegedly, in a lot of these stories. But yeah, Salem witch trials.
Okay,
The
let's
judge
move
was a
away
witch.
from
Yeah.
the Salem
Yeah,
witch
sorry, no,
trials.
just
I think that's Murphy to get back at you for. But anyway, so we stopped at Garnier that attacked 2 boys. His final attack, he killed a 12-year-old boy, tearing him apart, before he was found by workers who were passing by, leading to his arrest and torture. Obviously, that part we started with. It is important to note here that the accounts about the murdered children do vary. In some of his final victims, his final victim was a girl, and in others it was a boy. Due to the amount of time that has passed, it appears that some of the facts have gotten a bit muddled up. That's why I can't really tell you this is the person, that is the person. There is places where they say it was a 12-year-old girl, it was a 12-year-old boy, this, that, this. But the problem is I cannot find proper facts about it. So
Yeah, but that's also, again, it was that
it was too long ago.
too long ago, but also very
Folklore obviously changes everything, and obviously we know reporters don't report 100% correctly, so the moment it goes to a different town, the report changes a bit. It's like playing telephone. It was a boy, no, it was a girl. It was a 12-year-old, no, it was a 5-year-old. It changes over.
But again,
over
it's era specific.
down.
Stuff like this happens in era specific things. It was the 14th century. That means just think about a small village, children. You probably had a ton of children, like 23 of them. And if you lost one, you probably didn't even notice. So basically, I think my little girl is missing. Maybe not.
I don't
know.
care what you say. There's not a person on earth that's not
True,
going to
but-
notice their kids. So stop making crap
No,
up.
but like that's basically era specific. So that means
you can
so
be a
many
horrible
children.
parent, but you'll still realize your kid is gone.
Yeah, but just think about it specifically. So everything killed you. You did have a lot of children because the chance of them surviving was small. So basically, that was just how things operated back
It
then.
still didn't. I don't know what point you're trying to make. It still does not change how you died.
No, it doesn't change how you died. Just it understands
also doesn't-
why we would not know if it was a boy or a girl because it wasn't important at that point.
No, it was always
a child. It was important that it was a
more
child.
important that time because the boy was obviously more better and more
Not
important. And
not with the peasants. So if you're royalty, by all means,
No,
but the general
always.
population.
always. In those times, it was more important to have a boy because they could go forward. Remember, women didn't work. Women were at home. A daughter didn't. Boys went to school. Boys did everything. No, definitely. But anyway, stop trying to make stuff up. That's still the point. I don't care if you had 20 children, you'd realize if number 17 died. So anyway, with over 50 witnesses testifying against him, do you hear that? 50. There was no escape. He was found guilty of lycanthropy. I don't know how to pronounce that. Basically, it means being a werewolf. The real translation, because they also talk about mythical, which is funny. It derives from the Greek word wolf and man, referred to both the mythical ability to transform into a wolf or wolf-like creature, And remember that part, wolf-like creature, a lot they say you still look human, but you get the nails and the teeth and so on. So it is actually possible that you still look human, but not fully human to people. It
And get
doesn't
a tail.
mean you're
Wag your tail.
100% into a wolf.
Hmm.
Okay,
Also
so
just, what's it-
wolf-like creature, and then it says psychiatric syndrome, where someone believes they are and can transform into a wolf or other animal. So basically they're saying there's no way. It's mythical or your psychiatric syndrome.
Okay, but I think lycanthropy, I believe, was in Van Helsing, one of the movies. They do speak of a wolf as a lichen.
Yes, I remember.
A lichen,
everybody
yeah.
speaks about
Somewhere in one of the movies or books or something we read, a lichen is a werewolf. So lycanthropy makes sense.
Yes, so he's found guilty of lycanthropy and witchcraft. Garnier met a fate as brutal as the crimes he confessed to. On January 18, 1574, he was burned at the stake, a man whose legend would live on in the nightmares of Dole. While Garnier's case is terrifying, he was at least an adult. But what if the accused were just a child? That brings us to the next chilling story, one with the youngest wolf to ever be convicted. The moon hung heavy in the sky, casting eerie shadows through the forest of Gascony. It was the early 1600s, and people of rural France spoke in hushed whispers of a monstrous creature that stalked their village. Its presence marked by the bloodied remains of livestock, and worse, children who had vanished without a trace. One name would soon be whispered with fear and revulsion. Jean Grenier. John was a gaunt, ragged boy of 13, his wild hair tangled with the debris of the wilderness, his eyes sunken but filled with an unsettling hunger. To those who crossed his path, he was more beast than boy. He was a runaway, working as a cowherd for Pierre Combaut.
Combal.
Combaut.
I don't know, this is French, so combaut. This is French again. Where we know.
It is French. Pierre Combaut for about a month when he was arrested for bragging to free cowherds. First that he ran with the wolves, and later that he preferred human flesh, declaring that boys and girls were much more pleasant and delicate to eat. Which is just absolutely disgusting, but anyway. After his arrest, he claimed to roam the night under the guidance of a dark master, one who gifted him a wolf skin, allowing him to, there's the third one, wolfskin, allowing him to shed his frail human form and become something far more dangerous. And when the attacks began, no one doubted his word.
Well, he's 13 years old. When I was 13, I believed I was a hamster.
No, I didn't.
Nobody burned me at the stake or tortured
that
me.
That's
No, but obviously he said all these
that's
masculine things. He's a wolf. I was a fireman and all that. Nobody took me to trial for it. He made stuff up, and then coincidentally people disappeared because, again, this is the 1600s. They stumped their toe and died somewhere.
once again. You cannot stump your toe and magically have scratches and tear marks on you. So stop saying stump your toe, because no, it's not the same thing.
It's just as...
Torn apart and
Yeah, but
stumping your toe is two different things.
It happened just as often. As
No.
often as you would stump your toes, as often you'll be attacked by a wolf or a bear.
No, because I stomp my toe every single day and
You
I
would
sure
imagine
hasn't
that,
been
yeah.
attacked.
Imagine,
no.
imagine how many wolves...
You're making
if
up
you
facts.
lived in the 1600s, you would have been eaten by a wolf at least 7 times a day now.
You're making up facts. Anyway,
Ruff.
John spoke freely of his transformation. He did not shy away when confronted, nor did he try to conceal his gruesome deeds. With chilling certainty, he described how he prowled the land in his wolfish form, his sharp teeth tearing into flesh, his claws grasping at those too weak to escape. He boasted of his power, taking credit for attacking a young girl named Marguerite Boyer, swearing that had she not fought back, he would have devoured her completely. He claimed she was lucky. Others had not been. Witnesses, terrified and desperate for justice, spoke of the creature's growling eyes in the darkness, the unnerving swiftness of its movement, and the way its form blurred between man and beast. Parents locked their doors, clutching their children close, praying that the monster would not come for them next. The matter was taken to trial. Marguerite Boyer, the victim he claimed he had attacked, testified against him. She described the wolf as a savage animal that was fatter and shorter than the ordinary wolf. She said it had a smaller head, reddish fur, and a short tail. When he attacked her, she had been able to hit him with her walking stick. This caused him to retreat a few feet and sit on his hind legs while glaring at her with what she described to be a frightful look. At his retreat, she and her cows had been lucky enough to escape. She still had marks on her face from the attack, one she would probably have for the rest of her life. Jean's own words wound up condemning him. He spoke of his dark master, Monsieur de la Forest, a black-clad figure on a black horse who granted him his terrible gift. He described a grotesque Sabbath where he and his kind feasted upon the flesh of the victims, where the fires burned unnaturally bright and the air was thick with the scent of roasting meat. When Jean was asked the origins and where his wolfskin was, he said that it was kept by a man named Pierre Lombard, whose big black house was in the forest. He described it as an inferno in which men were being burned and roasted. He also named his father as an accomplice.
Oh dear. More stabby stabby. Everybody's burning again.
But was he truly a werewolf or something else? Unlike many accused werewolves, Jean Grenier was interrogated without torture and closely examined by scholars and judges alike. His nails were long and blackened, his teeth had sharpened unnaturally from use. His gait was that of a creature who had spent more time on 4 legs than on 2 feet. A boy, yet not quite human. His judges, hardened men who had seen the worst of humanity, were unsettled. Some had encountered werewolves before, and Jean fit the pattern, but his childlike mind made them hesitate. He did not resist the accusations. He did not deny his crimes. Instead, he accepted them, almost reveling in his nature. Yet unlike others who shared his fate, Jean Grenier was not sentenced to death. There was something different about him, something off. His mind, they said, was that of a much younger child, slow and simple. He was malnourished, abandoned, and cast out long before he found his master. Some saw him not as a monster, but as a tool of darker forces, easily led, easily molded. Jean Grenier was sentenced not to the stake, but to a monastery, where he would live out his days in isolation. His wolfish hunger kept at bay. Even Pierre de Lancre, the famed witch hunter, found this case disturbing, not because he doubted Garnier's guilt, but because he feared the leniency shown to him might call into question the death sentences given to so many others. A last thing about Jean's life that should be noted is that he appeared to have been abused by his father openly claiming that he was stupid, and apparently the reason Garnier had run away was because his father had beaten him severely after he cooked and eaten bacon and cabbages for him and his brother during Lent. He had gotten these items from neighbors when he went out begging, which would also suggest that they were not fed at home. This could either be the reason for his decision to turn to the Dark Master or for his mental problems. So the question is, was Jean Grenier truly a werewolf? Or was he simply a lost boy cast adrift in a world too cruel to nurture him, and too superstitious to understand him?
I think this is the closest to a werewolf we've come in the past couple of series. Not that I'm thinking he was a werewolf. He was obviously, from what you said at the beginning, I've got this feeling that this is an abused, poor child that was basically left to fend for himself in the woods or in the villages or begging. Obviously, I've got this idea in my mind that in this era you would have spent a lot of times with the pigs in the pig stalls because I think they said the beggars would go into the pig stalls to eat the food of the pigs. Because everybody, they threw veggies and meat and whatever for the pigs to eat, and beggars would go into the pig, what do you call the pig? What is it?
Pigsty.
Pigsty? Okay, let's go for pigsty.
I don't know. I just think of them saying your room looks like a pigsty.
I'm going for a pig pen. It's going to be a pig pen,
okay.
Whatever. That's where the beggars would have gone. So that's the filthy hands and looking like he's walking on 4 legs and hands and feet. I think he was maybe actually also looking after other siblings. Because it doesn't sound like his parents did much for them. Also, again, very poor and a very bad time.
So his mother was deceased?
Yes, and his father was abusive.
I think there was a stepmother, but I can't remember completely. And I do know that during the court case they talked about he wasn't testifying like a 13-year-old boy. He sounded children of 7 and 8 would testify better than he did.
Yeah, so he wasn't mentally there. Obviously, nobody cared for him.
Yes, so obviously they saying he has mental health issues, which is why they didn't sentence him to death and rather sent him to the monastery. But like I say, if you were beaten and mistreated and malnourished and everything, it's possible you'll go to somebody who shows you a little bit of kindness, and who would do that quicker than someone from the dark side, someone with dark magic, someone from the devil.
No, that's the one side of it.
You want to come to me, I will look after you, I will give you powers to torture and hurt anybody. I mean, it's also important to note that the 2 people he implicated, the person he said basically had the dark house and so on, was not prosecuted, and the father was also not prosecuted. They did look into them, but later on they did not agree because he was not willing. When they were in court, he would not implicate them, but when they were gone, he would implicate them because obviously, in my opinion, he was too scared of them. So obviously, when he was they were in front of him, he would like, no, nothing, everything is fine. But when they weren't there, he would tell the judge, listen, they were with me. Normally, I ran with my father as a werewolf. So
I think either he was smarter than we thought, just let's still say uneducated but street smart. But I think what he did either way, whether or not he's a wolf or not a wolf, or whether or not this was something out of the ordinary, is he was smart enough to know that if he does say all these things, confirm to all this, he'll probably be better off whatever he says. Whether he gets executed, it's better than living where he's living. Whether he goes to a monastery, gets free food for the rest of his life, it's better off than what he's doing now.
No.
That's smart, but
that
if
I
it
read
was...
about him, I don't think that's the case.
Is it? Otherwise it is that he did go to the dark side. He did start looking into witchcraft. Because this is 100 years after the previous story. Exactly 100 years. So that means in these 100 years, they had a lot more werewolves, a lot more hysteria about what people saw. So that would have been something he would have gone and looked at doing.
No.
But like if he had the mind of a 7 or 8 year old, all he had was stories to go on. So I'm very in between about this one. How does a 7-year-old make up stuff like this?
He's not 7, he's 13.
Yeah, but with the mental capacity of 7-year-old.
Well, under 7.
Under 7, allegedly, yeah.
They're saying 7 and 8 years old testify better than he did.
Yeah.
But I don't think he was super smart, no. But I do think the groundwork was laying to help send him to the dark side, because obviously the people who should have nurtured him and taken care of him and whose love he wanted obviously did not. So it's possible in my eyes. But anyway, there are still 3 more chilling cases to uncover in our exploration of the werewolves of Europe. But you will have to wait until next week to hear about them. We will discuss one of the most intriguing cases yet. If his story is true, it seems that at least one werewolf might not have been a monster after all.
If you enjoy diving down this rabbit hole in the world of weird with us, be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share your own thoughts. Remember to follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube for more content. Please also share our podcast with all your friends who enjoy folklore to help us grow.
Until next time, stay curious and keep the legends alive. Bye.
Bye.